Loud and clear. If you need anything while we're rolling, whether it's a tricky concept or just a bit of clarity, I'm ready. Let's make it a smooth recording session.
So tell me about this nervous system in the human body.
The nervous system is basically the body's command center. It's divided into two main parts: the central nervous system, which is your brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which is all the nerves branching out to the rest of your body. It handles everything: your thoughts, movements, senses, by sending electrical signals. Think of it as your internal superhighway for information.
Okay, the nervous system is connected in every part of the body through the nerve cells.
Exactly. Nerve cells or neurons are like the wiring that carries signals everywhere, whether it's to wiggle your toes, feel a breeze, or even regulate your heartbeat. They ensure that your brain and body are in constant lightning fast communication.
How the information is captured and sense and able to predict the next movement.
So neurons have receptors that pick up signals like pressure on your skin or light in your eyes. They convert these into electrical impulses, which travel through networks of neurons to the brain. The brain processes that info, predicts what might happen next based on experience, and then sends signals back out, letting you react almost instantly. It's prediction via pattern recognition.
So,
If you've got more curiosity about the brain or anything else, I'm here. It's always fascinating to dig deeper into how we function.
so the point is that there are n numbers of neurons, nerve cells, but why not the information is lost actually? Because you tell that there are neurons in a line or in a series, and then one electrical impulse passes through one neuron to another neuron in a sequence, and then how that one information of electrical pulse is different from the another information of the electrical pulse.
The key is in how these signals are coded. Each neuron doesn't just send a generic pulse. The pattern, like the timing, frequency, and which neurons fire together, creates a sort of code. It's like a unique pattern for each piece of information. Plus, neurons form specific networks, each dedicated to different tasks, so the brain knows exactly what's what.
Okay, now you have to give an example to support this statement.
Sure, think about hearing a melody. The brain gets different frequencies of sound. One set of neurons might fire in patterns for a high pitch, another for a low pitch. The combination of which neurons fire and how fast creates the perception of a tune. If different neurons fire in different patterns, you might hear speech instead. So the brain decodes these patterns to know what kind of information it's dealing with.
But for the first time, how this statement verified, because you are making a very complex argument.
You're absolutely right. This is complex and it took decades of research. Early verification involved careful experiments recording electrical activity from individual neurons. Scientists, using techniques like EEG or single neuron recordings, found that different stimuli produce distinct firing patterns. Over time, through countless trials, we mapped how specific patterns correlate to perceptions or actions. Today, brain imaging and neural recording keep refining that understanding.
Brain imaging and neural recording. That neural recording is what that you are talking about.
Neural recording is when scientists measure the electrical activity of neurons. This can happen in a few ways. For example, in animal studies, tiny electrodes can be placed near or inside neurons to record their firing. In humans, non-invasive methods like EEG measure the brain's electrical signals from the scalp. Essentially, it's capturing how neurons communicate by recording their electrical impulses.
Okay, now you have to specify a bit about EEG, measure the brain electrical signal from the scalp. Uh, I need to understand how actually, can you give example how actually it works and predict and analyze the results?
EEG works by placing electrodes on your scalp. These electrodes detect the summed up electrical activity from large groups of neurons firing in sync, especially in the cortex. The signals are amplified and recorded as wave patterns, like alpha, beta, or delta waves, each associated with different states, relaxed, focused, or asleep. By analyzing these patterns, you can infer things like if someone is attentive or if there are abnormal rhythms, such as in epilepsy. It doesn't predict exact thoughts, but it shows patterns of brain activity connected to different mental states.
No, I need to understand exactly what is happening inside the neuron architecture complete in the human body while they are performing.
Inside a neuron, it all starts with an electrical charge difference across its membrane. When stimulated, ion channels open, letting ions like sodium rush in, creating an electrical impulse called an action potential. This impulse travels down the axon. At the end, neurotransmitters are released into a gap, the synapse, signaling the next neuron. Networks of neurons repeat this, allowing communication. Different patterns, frequencies, and pathways create the complexity behind every action or thought.
So you mentioned about this when elect what is that electrode, no? That snaps.
I think you're mixing two terms. The electrode is what we use outside to record brain signals, like in EEG. The synapse, on the other hand, is inside your nervous system. It's the tiny gap between neurons. When the electrical impulse reaches a neuron's end, it releases chemicals called neurotransmitters into that synapse. These chemicals cross the gap and trigger the next neuron, continuing the message.
Okay, then you mentioned a whole step that when this ions open channel letting sodium rush in creating an electrical impulse called the action potentials, and then neurotransmitters are released in the gaps and signaling the next neuron. Networks of neuron repeat this, allowing communication different patterns frequency pathway. That is the thing we also talked initially, no?
Exactly. That's the core mechanism we discussed. The action potential is how one neuron generates that electrical signal, and neurotransmitters at the synapse allow that signal to jump to the next neuron. When you multiply this across billions of neurons firing in different patterns and pathways, you get all the complexity of thoughts, sensations, and actions. It's that beautifully orchestrated communication that makes our nervous system function.
Now the neurons are like a communication system inside the whole human body. Everywhere there is a specific network. So for every task, the same process occur inside the neuron. One neuron that we discuss about the exchange of messages through synapses. So, but the difference is only the frequency and the time and the thing that it actually differs in each case.
You got it. The fundamental process, ion channels opening, action potentials, neurotransmitter release, stays the same. The big difference is which neurons fire, in what pattern, and how often. Different networks of neurons handle different tasks, whether it's moving your hand or recalling a memory. The timing, rhythm, and pathways form the unique code for each experience or action. In short, the whole nervous system is like a vast, specialized communication network.
Okay. So, can you bit clear on this ion channel opening?
Absolutely. Neurons have tiny proteins in their membrane called ion channels. They can open or close. When a neuron gets a signal, certain channels open, letting ions like sodium or potassium flow in or out. This changes the electrical charge inside the neuron. If enough sodium rushes in, it triggers an action potential, like a little electrical spike that travels down the neuron. Once the signal passes, Other channels restore the balance, resetting the neuron for the next signal.
How can we mathematically think that neuron structure and able to help and understand in simulations wise, okay, if there is a that structure, if that information is passed, and then we will able to predict the next what we want to fit in that picture.
To model neurons mathematically, we often use what's called a compartment model, like the Hodgkin-Huxley model. It treats the neuron as an electrical circuit with ion channels as variable resistors. By using differential equations, we describe how voltage changes over time as ions flow. In simulations, we can adjust parameters like ion concentrations or channel properties to see how signals propagate. This helps us predict, for example, how a neuron will respond to a certain input. By simulating networks, we model brain activity and even predict how certain patterns lead to behaviors or states.
Okay, can you uh, summarize what we have discussed till now about this beautiful neuron?
Sure. We explored how neurons are the body's communication units, sending signals through action potentials. Ion channels open, letting ions in, creating those electrical spikes. At synapses, neurotransmitters pass the message to the next neuron. Networks of neurons with different firing patterns create all thoughts, actions, and perceptions. We also touched on how mathematical models simulate this, helping us predict neural behavior. It's all about patterns, timing, and pathways. Simple mechanisms building complex experiences.
Okay, thank you.